For the Booth family, this property was their life and livelihood.
You can tap in the stick, aren't you?
Young Darcy and Mitchell were raised here. Their parents, Kane and Sharon, dreamt of growing old on the farm. But 6 years ago, everything changed.
Yeah, the old place, she's looking a bit worse for wear.
The family had to abandon their home. This visit is Sharon's first since leaving.
You can feel the separation. You can feel that it's gone. It's like a piece of you is actually missing. You know, there's a main thoroughfare running through your property and then, oh, there's a gas well. Oh, there's another gas well. And it's all fenced out and you go to drive to the house, the track's changed. It's not even the same track. It's like, well, which way do I go now? It's my own property.
I get sick when I drive through that gateway. My guts twist into a knot, you know? I get crook thinking about it.
Brentley, just outside Chinchilla in Queensland, was the jewel in the crown of Kane's business, where his 10,000 head of cattle would come to fatten up. But Kane says when Queensland Gas Company, QGC, installed 3 coal seam gas wells on his property, the water supply and cattle were affected severely.
They've come in, they've destroyed everything here. It's a gas field, it's not a farm no more, it's a gas field.
Brentley was no longer a productive farm. What have you done now to protect your property?
I've chained all the gates up and locked QGC out.
What's happened to the wells?
The wells are shut off, so they're not pumping gas, and they're not allowed on until they sort this issue out.
He may be guarding his property, but in the eyes of the law, Kane is the criminal. You see, Queensland Gas Company has every legal right to access his farm whenever they want.
I had no idea this is what they do to people and do to the country to extract gas. They've destroyed my income. I can't operate. I've had to fight them, but it controls my whole life.
But locking the farm gate is no deterrent to Queensland Gas Company. They simply came along and cut out this entire section of fence and made a whole new gate. Then they put their lock on it. So Kane struck back and put his own chain and lock right there. But over here, it gets really ridiculous. This gate's just 50 metres away from the other one, and have a look at this. 5 different padlocks and chains. This is the sign of the standoff between Kane and the gas company, which for now at least is staying off the property. If it wasn't all so serious, it'd be laughable.
And this is the pathetic attempt at a fence.
They just cut the fence and come on and started up their wells. That's what they do, these people. They're just bullies. They just come in and do what they want.
Signed all the way along, saying it's an exclusion zone.
And legally, they've got the law on their side. They can come onto your property at will.
Government support them. They've got the backing of the government to be able to do it. So, you know, you're fighting them and you're fighting the government, you know? This is the thing. I mean, what chance have we got?
Not much, it seems, when you get an insight into the high-pressure tactics of QGC.
You know, QGC saying, get a meeting with Mr Booth and let's get some numbers out of him.
You're listening to a conversation between Kane and a senior QGC land access officer in the region. It's his job to deal directly with the farmers, to buy properties or negotiate access.
And we take our time with landholders and we build a relationship and we get a deal that suits them.
But in a classic good cop, bad cop routine, he reveals the corporate pressure from higher up in QGC management.
And on the other side, it's just fucking get the deal now, we need that now. Stop talking to the fucking landholder, force him into a corner. And we're sort of in between two worlds and trying to get a deal that makes everyone happy. So just is constantly pressuring us.
Get the deal done. Stop talking to the landowners. Force them into a corner.
And that's what they do. That is exactly what they do. They just push you into the corner. And there it is. Is that not bullying? Yeah. No? Is that not standing over you? To me, that's proper bullying you.
And if you're pushed into a corner, what happens?
Well, I'm pushed in a corner. I ain't going back any further. So I'm fighting. They want to fight, they got one.
Kane Booth knows how to fight. He's done it all his life. He ran away from home at 14, was good with his fists and his hands. And this bush-smart kid ended up a successful cattleman, building a multi-million-dollar business. But his troubles began in 2010. Against his better judgment, Kane allowed Queensland Gas Company to build a 3-kilometre, 40-metre wide pipeline along one boundary. It became a trap for his cattle.
We had the pipeline fill up with water, and they'd go into that pipeline, they couldn't get out of it. You know, they'd just walk across it, and they'd go straight down, you know. So we've lost quite a number of cattle, bogged, and died in that pipeline.
And once QGC were on, they became unstoppable. They next wanted to put 3 coal seam gas test wells, known as appraisal wells, onto Kane's land.
The only test wells came. It was always only test wells.
So test wells just to see what gas was in the ground?
Yes.
And that's all that they ever mentioned?
Yes. Yeah, they just wanted to have a look and see what was down there.
But not trusting the gas company and still dealing with the effects of that gas pipeline, Kane had enough. He wanted out.
And I said, listen, I'd rather just relocate, get out of your hair. We won't work together, you know. We were happy to move on outside the gas so I could continue on with my enterprise, you know.
So QGC began negotiating to buy Brentley. It dragged on for 2 years. Then suddenly, without explanation, they pulled out. The sale was off. Within hours of that decision, and knowing they had the law on their side, QGC sent 2 land access officers to Kane's front gate. In their hands, a contract, known as a CCA, to put gas wells on Kane's property. So they are on your property within hours of rejecting any offer to purchase the property. In their hand, they have this conduct and compensation agreement, the CCA. And they're basically saying, sign it, or you'll end up in court.
It's pretty disappointing because I can't read and write real good. But these people turned up within that time period, jammed that in my face, and never read that thing to me or tried to make me understand it. It was all about bullying me, you know, threatening me with the court thing, bluffing me into it.
Flick through 13 pages of conditions and legal wording in the conduct and compensation agreement for the wells, and there it is, a killer clause. On a fence post with QGC agents either side, Kane signed and agreed to 3 methane production wells. But in all of the conversations and all of the correspondence leading up to that in the years previous, it had only ever been described as testing and appraisal wells.
Only ever described as testing and appraisal wells. They lied. They totally lied.
But QGC had what it needed, and eventually Kane's property was a patchwork of gas production. Joining the major pipeline already running along the boundary, QGC drilled 3 wells, dug gathering lines carrying gas and water, and built a network of nearly 2 kilometres of new dirt roads. Kane and his family looked on in despair.
I've watched my husband age 20 years. You know, he was always a very energetic man, very energetic. He's still energetic, but he is so tunnel focused on trying to right this wrong. And it's been hell on earth.
Only recently, during his research for a court battle against QGC, Kane has discovered the gas company broke its own environmental guidelines by coming onto his property.
They say that they will not conduct gas field operations where it causes disturbance to intensive animal rearing operations.
But isn't that exactly what happened here?
They knew what they were doing, and that's what's happened here.
As we get close to the pipeline, natural surface has been raised about 500 here.
To make matters worse, that patchwork of access roads and buried pipes have created raised barriers that prevent the flow of overland water to this low-lying land. And slowly, the once rich paddocks on this feedlot have stopped growing.
It's been totally
What's this done to your family?
It's been very hard on us as a family. I'm always away. I can't talk now. Yeah, no, it's tough. It's very tough. My wife, you know, she hasn't got a husband these days. He's always on the road, dealing with these issues. It's put a lot of pressure on her.
Well, it got to a stage there with me where I thought, you know, that it would be better if he could move forward without, I suppose you could say, having me in the picture. And not quit, but if I went down that path, that maybe, I don't know what I'm trying to say, maybe if there was a desperate situation like that, that it would maybe bring things to a head.
You talk about a desperate situation. If you don't mind, what do you mean by that?
Well, I considered taking myself out of the picture, shall we say, in a permanent way.
Taking your own life?
Pretty much.
Really?
But not as a heroic thing, just I can't explain myself.
You know, when you see your family broken like that, you see your wife in that predicament, it probably made me want to fight harder when I thought about it enough. You know? See, people, they're not getting away with this. So I'm not giving up. They're just going to make me bog right in.
This is home video on the property of George Bender, one of Kane Booth's neighbours.
Look at the gas.
It shows gas vapour, then water, bursting to the surface from deep underground on George's property. What's making it erupt is the force of methane gas escaping to the surface because of the mining activity.
The methane is held in the coal seams by the water pressure. So releasing that pressure and removing the water allows that methane to free flow.
It'll take the easiest route.
Bingo.
Helen Bender has taken on her father George's crusade.
I think we can have liftoff. This one is getting worse.
What did this farm mean to Dad?
Oh, I'd actually have to say it'd be everything to him. I mean, that actually question gets me every time because he was married to the land more than what he was probably married to the family.
The paddock we're in was George's favourite, his most fertile soil. But it also became his battlefield with another gas company, Origin Energy.
We call them liars, cheats and thieves.
Who the 68-year-old farmer blamed for contaminating his 2 bores, spewing vast volumes of methane.
Both bores were at explosive levels of methane, yes. So they were dangerous. They were both dangerous.
But the responsibility for that
is with Origin Energy to decommission and make good. And that's all George was trying to do. After 555 business days of negotiation of a make good agreement.
Hang on, say that again, 555 days.
Business days. 805 days.
That's how long they took?
To come to a signed agreement. And I think Dad signed in the end because he just got sick and tired of the negotiation process.
The refusal to fix the bores, George believed, was a tactic to wear him down and force him into selling. Eventually, Origin sent him a letter to buy the property. George had just 30 days to decide.
The company just will not agree to any of our terms. They want everything done their way. You can only sort of take so much of this stuff.
What was the final straw for Dad?
Cumulatively, everything had its toll, but the final straw was Origin Energy forcing that sale of this one property. Yeah, it really came down to that letter, wanting to purchase it when it wasn't for sale.
What did that mean to your dad?
He really felt like he may have failed.
So one morning, George rose at 6 a.m. like every other day. He set the table for breakfast and went to the shed to take his life.
George didn't die straight away. It would have been a good 28 hours or so before he passed, so we all got a chance to see him.
And he was conscious and able to talk to you?
Perfectly well. Absolutely. First thing he said to me was, "I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done it."
Boy.
My brain snapped. The thing that he can continue to repeat all morning. He kept on saying they just wouldn't leave me alone. And he was saying it with so much angst, like he knew he knew that they got to him.
1 month after George Bender took his life, Origin Energy finally came to his farm, decommissioned those contaminated bores and stopped the gas.
I think it was just a logical step for him to take his life. Yep.
Yeah, that's all he could see.
Look, I think it probably was. He thought if he wasn't here, then all of this would go away. Yeah.
But it hasn't gone away, and now Helen fights to hold the gas companies to account. Despite her father's death, not everyone is rallying behind the Bender family. As we head up the Condamine River, we're being watched. Why would people be spying on us today?
I don't know. I mean, it's a river. I wonder what's at the other end that they don't want us to see. What are they continuing to keep hiding?
How are you? And is there any reason you're photographing us? It makes you wonder why we're being watched here. That's the second or third time that people have turned up taking photographs of us. All we're doing here is crossing a part of the river. Why are they acting so suspiciously? Why are they so suspicious of anyone being on the river? You have to ask, what is the big secret? This is what makes some locals sensitive.
Oh, they're just over there. See the little bubbles coming up?
Bubbling methane gas on the Condamine River. You can hear them crackling to the surface. A natural and historical phenomenon, but the activity of which has radically increased with the rise in coal seam gas mining. Even Origin Energy admitted the increased methane activity in a conversation earlier this year.
Like, I'm talking to guys that have, swam in that river, learned to fish in the river at 80 years of age, who have never seen anything like it.
No, the bubbles are, as you know, it's significantly stronger than anecdotal reports in the past.
Origin has now placed caps like this one on the riverbed to capture the methane and pump it to a processing station at the top of the hill. How should the coal seam gas companies view your father's death?
This is on their back. This is blood on their hands. But it's not just the industry, it's also the government, because they did nothing to help that. Nothing.
It's exactly the same back at Kane Booth's property, where it appears George's death has finally bucked some politicians into action.
Kane, there will be other people that'll step forward, and nothing came out of the terrible Bender case, and now's our chance to strike back.
Bob and Robbie Catter, like Kane, aren't anti-gas, but say the industry's practices of riding roughshod over farmers should be front and centre in the election campaign.
This is environmental desecration at its worst.
And they're organising a rally of affected farmers.
Next thing you hear from us will be a public meeting to first gather up the troops to who else is affected by this and get a clear picture of what this means and send that message loud and clear to the government, because this is a problem for everyone.
It's a start. The gas wells have changed the landscape and lives. Helen Bender worries her father's death was in vain, but she hopes George's legacy is a spotlight on the environmental consequences of coal seam gas extraction. And Kane never wants another life lost to the stress of the fight. He saw his wife, Sharon, come heartbreakingly close.
It's just ripping, it's literally ripping us apart. Just ripping us apart.
That's their way of pushing you into the corner. They know. Sooner or later, this bloke's going to get sick of this. I am sick of it, but I ain't running away from it. I'm too far in now, you know? So...
Keep fighting.
Keep fighting, eh?
Yeah, definitely.
It's definitely a battle for us fellas, you know, kids.
So, on the dirt, outside their former family home, on land they own but can't farm, the lesson around the campfire tonight is for Kane's young sons, from a father who started from scratch and won't give up.
You listen to your dad. No matter how big a battle gets, you don't ever throw the towel in and give up, because I'm not giving up on this. I'm not going to let these people take this away from us for nothing. You take note. You always stand your ground.
No, this one ain't over yet.
No way in the world.
Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.